What is up, duelists? It is 2026 Blazing Dominion reveal season, and we've just gotten a pretty big generic card in here that I want to give you guys a quick read on, and also my opinion. It is Feedrallis Harmonia, which is a Dark Dragon tuner, level 7, 2500 attack. You can only use the effect of this card's name once per turn. And it is when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand and up to 5 synchro monsters in your extra deck. Apply these effects in sequence based on the total number revealed. Also, you cannot activate the effects of monsters special summoned from the extra deck until the end of your next turn except synchro monsters. So despite it being a generically useful card, of course, there are some restrictions here. You're gonna have to play at least 5 synchros in your extra deck to get the maximum value from this card, and you can only summon synchros during your next turn as well. So that is gonna be quite, the restriction in terms of which decks can play this card. However, if you reveal 2+ synchros, you special summon this card. If you reveal 4+, send one of the revealed synchros to the graveyard. And if you reveal 6 cards, which you reveal 5 synchros and itself, so basically, it's always it counts itself as one of the revealed cards. You get to destroy one monster your opponent controls. So of course, long story short, this is a hand trap, a relatively generic one, but you of course have to be playing basically a synchro deck, or at least a deck that doesn't care about being locked into synchros. Something like, I don't know, Labyrinth could also play this if you don't care about using your extra deck, for example. So the interesting part about this being a hand trap is that it's not one of your classic hand traps like, oh, you do something, I negate it. It generates value and removal at the same time, and that's a pretty interesting concept, I think, while also being pretty strong. This is the type of card that I feel like, unless the combo decks in the format are completely immune to removal, this is the type of card that sees play in any deck that can play it, I think, because you're always going to get the option to destroy one monster your opponent controls. You're always going to get a 2500 level 7 tuner onto your field. And then you're also going to get whatever you're sending from the extra deck to the graveyard, which could be a Malong for another bounce, which would turn this into a 2500 level 7 tuner body that destroys a monster and bounces a face-up card, which is a pretty neat deal for a hand trap. You can send an Enigmaster Pact Bit, which in case you want other forms of removal than returning a card to the hand. This thing lets you, when it's sent to grave, discard a card and then place a monster into the spell and trap zone, which can be a pretty unique way of removal as well. And then obviously, I mean, we've all been thinking it. Herald of the Arclight is also a synchro. However, I will say, funnily enough, even though Herald of the Arclight is probably the most obvious use of this card, I don't know if this is actually going to happen, because by the time we get this card, my personal prediction is we're not going to have Herald of the Arclight in the TCG anymore. But even if we do, I can't really think of a deck that wants to lock itself into synchros from the extra deck and also search a ritual. Like, of course, yes, you can search Habakiri with this, but Habakiri's applications are limited if you are locked into synchros. Like, even in the pure Mitsurugi deck, you like to make your rank 4s, you like to make your IP or SP or Dynamondo or whatever. So I'm not sure if even pure Mitsurugi is gonna like locking itself into synchros. Of course, you could do some other things, like you do get a level 7 tuner onto the field with this, so you could be making, like, I don't know, level 11 synchros, but is that really something that pure Mitsurugi wants to do? And then any of the Mitsurugi hybrids, of course, like Mitsurugi Yami, really don't want to be locked into synchros. So I'm not quite sure exactly which deck in the current meta is immediately going to adapt and play this card, but I do think that in the future, whenever you have a deck that is just focused around synchros, Cool Tune is a card or a deck that is potentially interested in this sort of card for sure, because that deck is locked into not just synchros, but like it just locks itself into tuners, so you have to summon all the Cool Tune synchros exclusively. This also being a tuner, but just as a hand trap, I think this card is pretty interesting because, like I said earlier, it's not one of those just, oh, let me just negate whatever you're trying to do. Whatever your opponent is activating here to allow you to activate this card is still going to resolve. You're not going to stop whatever effect they're using from resolving. You're just going to get removal out of this and a body, which I think is pretty cool. and it's mostly something that's probably going to be used to advance your own game state while also interrupting the opponent a little bit, which kind of reminds me of Abystial in some way. It's not quite as the same as Abystial, because Abystial is graveyard interaction and this is on-field interaction, but for the most part, I think the two are relatively similar in concept. One other thing that I quite like about this card is that it doesn't feel bad to draw. I think like this is something that you can definitely make use of on your own turn if this is card number 6, which is something that differentiates it from a lot of other cards. I mean, of course, sometimes you find use cases for like an Infinite Impermanence or an Ash Blossom on your own turn, but then you look at cards like Nibiru or Effect Veiler or even worse, the Mold Charmies. And whenever you draw those as card number 6, they're going to be completely dead. So I think that's something that this card is a lot better at. You know, when you're playing into a board, all of a sudden summoning a 2500 body that non-target as well destroys a monster your opponent controls is pretty good. So I'm thinking like Labyrinth, Dogmatica, every deck that basically doesn't need its extra deck much is going to want to look into this card. And then, of course, any synchro strategy. You know, I've seen people post lists online with Cool Tune and this card already, which I can definitely see a home in that deck. But the applications for this card are pretty strong. So I do think it is one of the stronger cards revealed in Blazing Dominion as of now, even though some of the current meta decks can't use it. I think it's just a matter of time until some meta deck will. So I saw this card and I thought this card was worth making a video on its own about. I mean, the only thing I guess that I dislike about this card is that it is a hand trap that essentially can be used just the same way whether you're going first or going second. I've kind of thought about that, and I wanted or like I've been saying recently that I kind of think like in modern Yu-Gi-Oh cards should be doing more for the player going second than for the player going first. While not, I don't like when cards are completely dead going first either. Like with the Molt Charmies, that's one of the things that I don't enjoy when you put those into your deck and they're completely useless when you go first. That can be annoying. But with this card, it's like going second, it feels okay to me. But when you have this going first and you make a half board and your opponent starts playing into it, then this card I think is going to feel also really strong, because removal behind a board is certainly quite something. But either way, very strong card, quite generic, even though not every single deck can play it, but a lot of decks are going to find a way to do it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is this going to be the next big thing, or is it just basically a little bit too harsh on the restrictions and therefore not many decks are going to use it? I'm kind of in the middle. I think any deck that can use it will, but that is completely dependent on what kind of archetypes and decks we're going to be getting throughout the year. If there is any synchro exclusive decks like Cool Tune that end up making it into the meta, I think this card is very good in them. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, and signing out. Thanks for watching.